Hi guys, and many thanks for joining me. If you are new to my channel, hi, I'm Kat and I like to talk about crime, investigations, missing people, conspiracy theories and everything related. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe by hitting the subscribe button below and also hit the notification bell so you are the first to know about any new videos I upload. And for my returning subscribers, I would like to thank you so much for all your continuous support and also for those beautiful comments. Thank you. Today I want to talk to you about Gonzalo Amaral's book, Maddie, The Truth of the Lie. Okay, so this is the second part of the same book. So if you haven't watched the first part yet, I highly recommend you watching it first before watching this video so that everything makes sense. And the link for the video should be somewhere top right, I think. Anyway, somewhere here I will link it up. Before we get started, here is the disclaimer. I do not mean to be disrespectful to anyone I talk about in this video. The video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The information I collect is from the internet and I compile all this information and make a video for you. Thank you. Let's recap just a little bit of what we talked about in my previous video, part 1 of The Truth of the Lie. So, in the first part of the video, I am talking about all the work put by Gonzalo Amaral, his team and the Portuguese police into Madeleine McCann's investigation and the efforts in trying to find her. And I also tried to highlight the fact that Amaral and the police worked really hard even from the first night, although the British media is trying to portray the Portuguese police as some low-force police from a small village which haven't got a clue how to run an investigation like this. And I also touched some points in trying to make the connection between Gordon Brown and the McCann's case and how he fits into jumping into their aid. I also discussed about the Treaty of Lisbon, which I found as a great connection between Gordon Brown and the McCann's case. But enough of that, let's start part 2 of Maddie, The Truth of the Lie. I want to start off with behind the scenes of the investigation, which is the crisis unit. Chief Inspector Tavares de Almeida was the person keeping the crisis unit operational throughout the investigation until the departure of the last English police officer, when the McCanns returned to England, which seems like it wasn't necessary any longer to continue the investigation into the country where the disappearance took place. The police involved in the investigation are living in an apartment in the town center, which quickly becomes overcrowded. We have investigators sleeping on the sofa, others are sleeping on the floor, others are sharing beds, and even with the lack of sleep, they are ready to carry on each morning. It's Almeida who every morning at 6 o'clock opens the local office and only leaves it after midnight. In the office, the data is being centralized, emails, phone calls, communications from police officers, and this information is being analyzed so that they can choose the ones of interest. Almeida prepares documents, many which need translating. This is a massive operation with a lot of effort put in. Amaral at this point becomes an absent father. He starts distancing himself from his family to protect them from the media pressure. However, in February 2008, he already lives alone. He now feels betrayed by the institution where he dedicated himself for more than a quarter of a century, and nothing seems to justify what had happened to him, and his family clearly didn't deserve that. Almeida and the whole police force involved in the investigation feel revolted, and they feel the judiciary police didn't do enough to protect them, and on top of that, they also called into question their reliability. After the national director's statement, Amaral believes there was a rumor the director will be dismissed as well. The judiciary police is in crisis, and this will only be resolved by resignations in the highest spheres of hierarchy. Okay, I am back with the book and I want to read a paragraph from it. Yeah, this is for my thumbnail. Just give me a second, guys. I actually have a system now. If you look at all the colorful sticky notes here, I have a system now. I found it. How come a criminal investigation, in this case, the research undertaken following the disappearance of a little English girl, could have caused so much upset to Portuguese justice and the judiciary police, and compromised the cooperation that existed for such a long time between the police of the two countries? What are the powers that made the investigation so difficult to the point of stopping it abruptly? In recounting its operation, perhaps a response can be outlined and new light thrown on the events. Police reinforcements arrive from Lisbon. A team from the Central Crime Fighting Directorate with their director are sent. Amaral was not aware of this, however, he welcomes them and their experience. On the 7th of May, English police from Leicestershire arrives. Bob Small, an officer from the Leicestershire police, and his colleague get up to speed with the situation before contacting the couple. Glenn Power, the liaison officer to Portugal, will also be sent packing. And now I want to refer back to the book and I'll read you another paragraph. On May 14th, Kate Healy is indignant about the attitude of the liaison officer, who asks her where her daughter is. Neither she nor her husband accepts anyone doubting their word. The officer will be sent packing, and his colleague too, a week after his arrival. Okay, how can I say this? I really feel that Kate and Jerry's attitude is shocking, to say the least. These parents, they have lost their child in a foreign country, and all these officers came here only to help, but they as well are sent away. Amaral and his team find this really shocking, but the thing is, they didn't find out straight away. The English police didn't even bother telling them. Amaral found out from someone else. Now, as time goes by, Amaral realizes some of the English police officers sent to Portugal are poorly informed of the progress of the investigation. Go figure. Nothing surprising here. One of them, his first time in Portugal, was wearing a green and yellow rubber bracelet inscribed "Look for Madeline," which he bought for £2, which I assume were made so they can collect more funds for the search for Madeline. As soon as this police officer gets properly informed and finds out more evidence in the investigation and doubts the theory of the abduction, he takes his bracelet off straight away. So you see, to me, this goes to show that even the British police at one point was reluctant to believe abduction theory. They were very supportive of all the scenarios being investigated by the Portuguese police. Now, in the hopes of retracing the steps Madeline took, a search operation is set. Sniffer dogs are brought from Lisbon, from the National Republican Guard. But this is an identical operation which already took place on the night of 3rd of May, but the dogs used were from the local police. Okay, now, we really do need to talk about that Calpol theory we keep hearing not hearing, but mostly reading on the internet. There's something really interesting I found online about this actually. As it turns out, in 2007, Johnson & Johnson released Calpol Night. In fact, it was approved for launch in January 2007, and after approval, it became available on prescription. This Calpol indeed contained sedating antihistamines called diphenhydramine hydrochloride, and this has some really dangerous side effects such as drowsiness, blurred vision, dry mouth, nose and throat, among others. We know that at some point Kate admitted she did take to Portugal Calpol, but she insisted it only contained paracetamol and also insisted she didn't give any to Madeline, although we know her dad, if I'm not mistaken, said that she used Calpol previously for the kids to help them sleep. Now, paracetamol contained in Calpol does not by any means aid sleep. It's merely a painkilling medicine, but combined with the sedating antihistamines, this for sure would aid sleep. Okay, so let's get back to the theory I mentioned in one of my other videos. Madeline woke up drowsy, right? Climbed on the sofa, she lost her balance, fell and hit her head to the point it led to her terrible accident. Let's not forget that allegedly a syringe was found in apartment 5A, which could have been used to administer Calpol. And also, let's not forget, Kate is a pediatrician and would know how to administer medication. Maddie is drowsy from the medicine. She could also very well have blurred vision as one of the side effects. It's very possible she suffered an accident and behind that sofa she passed away. Calpol Night in June 2007 was deemed unsafe for children under 6 years of age, and this eventually got banned. Paracetamol usually takes around 7 hours to be eliminated from the body. So, if really the parents were asked for the twins to be tested on the same night of Maddie's disappearance, then this could be the reason why they refused. Kate offered the twins to be tested only after 3 months, as she mentions in her book. By that time, she knew there won't be anything found in the toxicology or blood report. She was so clever, but honestly not so clever. During the investigation, a doctor points out to Amaral and his team that Madeline has a mark in her eye, which is also known as coloboma of the iris and can be associated with other disorders such as cardiac insufficiency. That's why for Amaral it was very important to find out, so he made request to the British Medical Association, but guess what? They never responded. What a surprise. Coloboma of the iris can also give light sensitivity, which can cause discomfort and affect the vision, and might also give migraines. And pair that with Calpol Night, which causes blurred vision and drowsiness, and hypothetically there you have a 3-year-old girl waking up in an apartment alone, looking for her parents, climbing the sofa, falling behind it, and ultimately banging her head in the tile floor. And theoretically, if really indeed she had cardiac insufficiency, Calpol might not have been a good option for Maddie to take. The sedating antihistamines can give heart palpitations and increased heart rate. This can be very well far-fetched. I'm not saying no, but I would rather just get it all out there. I made my research online and all these are from medical websites. But I'm not saying it can also be a possibility. Now, before I move on to Madeline sighting all around the world, there is one thing I want to mention. There's some images from a CCTV camera captured on the motorway linking Lagos to the Spanish border. The little girl in the images seems to be Madeleine McCann. So, obviously the McCanns are asked to go to Portimao to try and make an identification, right? And there we have again the McCanns. Amaral finds it very, very surprising that when asked, Kate is in fact annoyed and also made uncomfortable by the speed the police car is taking her. This is, I can't believe it, really. It's just disgusting. So let me get this straight. So here we have a possible lead of a girl looking just like Madeleine, where police are racing against time to try to identify this little girl before the trail goes cold, before she's gone. But her own mother is frustrated she has to go down to the police station. Really? You have all these police officers, out of courtesy, driving Kate to the police station, and yet she's not happy with the speed of the car. The speed of the police, who just want identification of her own daughter so they can take action as soon as possible. This is beyond belief and comprehension. A mother hears her daughter might have been seen on CCTV, but she's annoyed and uncomfortable? Oh, no. I can't believe this. It seems to me as if, at this point, the police is doing more than the parents. It seems to me the police are more excited than the parents that their daughter was potentially spotted. As if the McCanns already know that's impossible. As if Kate didn't really expect to find her daughter. Needless to say, however, the identification turned out negative. And this was not the only time Kate seems annoyed. I remember reading a news article, I think it was, or I don't know, was it something she maybe wrote in her book? Where she criticized the Portuguese police for not being welcoming when she was taken for interrogation. They didn't offer her any biscuits or a drink, and they were rude. But my question is, are you at the police station to find your daughter, or are you at the police station for a tea party? Seriously, these are some really, really weird behaviors here. Madeleine is spotted all over the world. From the moment Maddie's photo is in the media, her presence is reported to the Portuguese police from all over the world. In Spain, Morocco, all over Europe, and even in Latin America. Almost at the same time, she is seen in Zurich and on the corner of a Rio de Janeiro street. May 11th and Morocco. A Norwegian woman allegedly recognizes Madeleine at a petrol station in Marrakech. What's weird is there will be a lot of witness statements from Morocco, and each time she is spotted, she is always barefoot, always in pyjamas, and this is the strangest thing ever, really. So let's just say for a moment that she was abducted in her pyjamas and barefoot. But how can she be seen wearing exactly the same thing? Logically, if she would have been abducted, then the abductor would definitely change her outfit so she's not easily recognizable anymore. And most certainly she wouldn't be barefoot. Come on, seriously? Which leads me, in all honesty, to believe the sightings in Morocco were, in fact, allegedly fake and planned. The fact that Madeleine is seen simultaneously all over the world makes me think that this was done on purpose by someone to further derail and confuse the investigation. But then there's also something else regarding Morocco. A young Spanish woman takes photos from her car of a North African family seen walking along a road. The woman is carrying a girl on her back. Amaral still hasn't seen this photo, and only the next morning he sees it in the press. And now I want to move again to a paragraph from the book. We ask the Chief of Leicestershire Police, Stuart Pryor, where he is up to with it. He explains that the English police, after having seen the photo, immediately submitted it to the McCanns, asking them if they recognized their daughter. To which they replied with a perhaps. Oh, perhaps, maybe, I don't know, I don't care, I'm not interested. Something like that. Incomprehensible to say the least. We are shocked by the behavior of the English, who took that initiative without consulting us, the people responsible for the investigation, which is all the more ludicrous given that the McCanns were already considered as suspects. That way of doing things disrupts the strategy adopted for the investigation, which the Portuguese and the English agreed on. But let me tell you something, this is not the only time or thing the McCanns are in possession of which they shouldn't be as suspects. Amaral recalls he cannot comprehend how the McCanns have access to information which is not made public. The police searched the McCanns' house they were occupying. What they found was very indicative of Kate being in mourning. She has like a shrine with Maddie's photos, space between them is a representation of a saint, then a crucifix or a rosary can be seen. I, for one, am not a very religious person, but I do, however, respect everyone's beliefs and religions. I remember, as a child, I used to go to church every Sunday, and after service, we were always lighting up candles to remember our loved ones who passed away. We would say a prayer and then contemplate. The priest, during the service, would dedicate the last words of the service in remembering the ones who passed away, by a way of reading their names out loud. Names would be given by people who had loved ones who passed away. We would also have a holiday once a year in October where we would remember the dead. We would go to the cemetery and light up candles. And if we couldn't attend, then we would keep photos of our loved ones who passed away and light candles by the window. Going back to Kate, she also had a copy of a Bible with a bookmark slipped in it, which opens to the second book of Samuel, chapter 12. I want to read the verses because it will make sense to you what I will say next. I have sinned against the Lord, David said. Nathan replied, The Lord forgives you, you will not die. But because you have shown such contempt for the Lord in doing this, your child will die. Then Nathan went home. The Lord caused the child that Uriah's wife had born to David to become very ill. David prayed to God that the child would get well. He refused to eat anything, and every night he went into his room and spent the night lying on the floor. His court officials went to him and tried to make him get up, but he refused and would not eat anything with them. A week later, the child died, and David's officials were afraid to tell him the news. They said, while the child was living, David wouldn't answer us when we spoke to him. How can we tell him that his child is dead? He might do himself some harm. When David noticed them whispering to each other, he realized that the child had died. So he asked them, Is the child dead? Yes, he is, they answered. David got up from the floor, had a bath, combed his hair, and changed his clothes. Then he went and worshipped in the house of the Lord. When he returned to the palace, he asked for food and ate it as soon as it was served. We don't understand this, the officials said to him. While the child was alive, You wept for him and would not eat, but as soon as he died, you got up and ate." "Yes," David answered. "I did fast and weep while he was still alive. I thought that the Lord might be merciful to me and not let the child die. But now that he is dead, why should I fast? Could I bring the child back to life? I will someday go to where he is, but he can never come back to me." Then David comforted his wife, Bathsheba. He had intercourse with her, and she bore a son, whom David named Solomon. The Lord loved the boy, and commanded the prophet Nathan to name the boy Jedaiah, because the Lord loved him. For David, life had to go on. Okay, thank you for bearing with me. I know it was a bit of a long read, but to put this into context, we know Kate's part of the room it looks sort of like a shrine. Yeah, photos on the table, photos on the wall of Maddie, saints, crucifix, rosaries, Bibles, whatever. On the other hand, Jerry's part of the room is cold. There's no photos of his daughter. He manages here the Madeline Fund, organizes his agenda and writes his blog, compared to Kate's shrine, where she is clearly in mourning. It's here that the police officers discover, much to their amazement, some books and manuals exclusively intended for police services and government agencies. And these are the books and manuals they found. Missing and Abducted Children, a law enforcement guide to case investigation and program management from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Training courses from COP, Serious Organized Crime Agency, Child Exploitation and Online Protection Center. Making Every Child Matter Everywhere. Again, COP, Serious Organized Crime Agency, Child Exploitation and Online Protection Center. Mark Harrison himself is wondering, how can Jerry be in possession of such books? Okay, since we are at the COP subject, the Child Exploitation and Online Protection Center, I want to talk to you a bit about that. Some really interesting information I found online. There is this website called The Wayback Machine. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but this is such a cool website, really. So what this The Wayback Machine does is, basically, it stores billions of web pages, including those which have been deleted but scanned or crawled, as you might hear it, and they are being added into the archive, right? And in this Wayback Machine, a page was grabbed on the 30th of April 2007 at 11:58:03 from the COP website. Please remember this date, 30th of April, 30 April 2007. Everyone knows, right? Madeline disappeared on the 3rd of May at around 10 p.m., correct? Okay, so now look at the screen and keep in mind the red circled areas, alright? My question, very simple. Why was the COP advertising Madeline's disappearance days before she went missing? The page says, "Help find Madeline," and the photos of her are before her holiday in Portugal. However, I have to say, this date was later modified, and if you look at it now, the date is changed to the middle of May. So you might say that this is incorrect, or perhaps a mistake, or whatever, I don't know. But let me tell you this, as part of a web page or website or anything like software, online platform and so on, if you wish, phone apps or whatever, you know, everything there on a computer, website, you know, online. There is a code, yeah, which is sort of like the infrastructure of said website or page. And this code doesn't lie, okay? Now, I'm not sure how familiar you are with HTML. But it's clear as day if you look at this photo of the HTML data, which you can easily find with the inspect option from a browser, the date and time when this was published on the COP website. And the date and time is 30th of April 2007 at 11:58:03. Who can have access to modifying a web crawling result? You tell me, because I have no idea. But my husband is a bit more knowledgeable than me with this, HTML and web things and stuff. Not getting into more details. And I'm asking him, right? So I ask him, who can actually physically delete a crawling result which is indexed automatically and no one should have access to it? Without him knowing why I'm asking him about it, the first answer he gives is that of a hacker. I'm like, okay, a hacker, got it. Apart from a hacker, let's put for a moment to aside the hacker idea. Apart from a hacker, who can do it? And he tells me that only the FBI or the secret services or a government agency can modify this data. Okay, seriously, I'm getting chills. Seriously, I am. I didn't want to believe that someone so high like the FBI or the secret services or MI5 would be involved. But in a way, it does make sense, because I don't see any other way or reason, or how can I say, this cover up, it just goes too high up. It goes too high up for something bigger than that not to be covered up. I believe, it's really my opinion, that something much more than pedophilia or child trafficking is going on here. I won't be getting into more detail now, but I will be covering this theory in another video later on. Let's move on. Now, I want to talk to you about a ransom email. I'm not sure if you've heard of it or if you didn't, but this is really, really, really interesting. Nothing else to say apart from interesting. Did you know that allegedly Kate and Jerry McCann received an email asking for money in return for Madeline? Yes, as it seems. Amaral mentions in his book that on the 14th of June, the parents are contacted by a stranger who says he has information on where Madeline is. At the advice of the investigators, the McCanns set up an email address so that they can maintain contact easily. Whilst in contact, the stranger asks for $2 million with an advance of 500,000 euros, and the money has to be sent to an acquaintance of his in the Netherlands. Remember, Netherlands. At this point, the Dutch courts and police are asked for assistance in locating and finding out who the individual is. The McCanns are anxious. They believe the emails are genuine and they respond so very quickly, so they must have already the $2 million in place. The McCanns and Madeline used to live in the Netherlands before the twins, so they are questioning if perhaps someone they knew there would do this. And I'm questioning as well if perhaps they were the ones who paid someone to send a ransom email to further derail the investigation. I don't know. My opinion. The Portuguese, Dutch and English police are negotiating with the informant. Inspectors, negotiators, members of Scotland Yard and Leicestershire Police are waiting for a contact to establish the place and conditions of handing over the money. Tension is at its height. All police officers holding their breath, and they wait and wait. But Jerry McCann, he's so relaxed that he's even playing trivia on the internet, talking about rugby and football with the British police whilst licking on a lollipop. Oh, bless you, Jerry. He even laughed with his friends who called him. And at this point, the police officers are yet again in another shock of Jerry's behavior. His nonchalance surprised even the English police officers. 2 days later, the Dutch police arrest the informant. And it turned out he didn't have any information on Madeline. Go figure. We all knew that already, didn't we? Very suspicious behavior. As if Jerry knew they won't find anything and it will lead to a dead end. But perhaps his coldness throughout the investigation, which he didn't lose, even made one of the English police officers say, "Don't forget, he's a heart surgeon and he cuts people open before breakfast." Before I end this video, there's 2 more points I'd really like to talk about. The English Forensic Science Service Lab in Birmingham. All the samples and traces lifted from apartment 5A, which I won't get into more detail now because I've already covered this in a previous video, are sent to the lab in the UK. These samples are not sent there by chance, but this is one of the most reliable lab in the UK, or let's just say was before Madeline's investigation, allegedly. The lab also has cutting-edge technology and the results wouldn't be able to be contested by the British, considering this is one of their labs, okay? The samples collected after the visit of the dogs are entrusted to this lab, and to avoid any leaks of information, Stuart Pryor is the liaison between the lab and the Portuguese police. A few days after the samples are sent, the PJ are informed the DNA of the blood found in the boot of the McCann's car match 50% with Jerry's DNA, which means the blood is one of his children. In September, just before the McCanns are placed under investigation, Stuart Pryor travels to Portimao to present one of the 2 preliminary reports from the lab. The analysis of the traces of blood lifted from 5A, according to the lab, proved inconclusive, because the samples have very little information when the DNA comes from more than one person. But all the confirmed DNA components match the DNA of Maddie's profile. The second report arrives the same day the McCanns are brought for the interrogation. This one gives more importance to the DNA profile lifted from the blood off the floor, but there's no other mention whatsoever of the samples lifted from the car, as if they never existed. Maybe the lab just said, oh, let's just forget about those samples because we don't need them. They don't need to know anything. Some light on the issue. According to Amaral's book, either the LCN technique is not reliable or it's just simply much easier to explain Madeline's DNA found in the apartment than in the car hired 24 days after her disappearance. Oh well, of course it's much easier to justify the findings in the apartment. Maddie was there, so logically DNA of hers would be found there, right? However, how can you explain her DNA was in the car boot without incriminating yourself? How? What parent puts their kids in the boot of the car and the kid bleeds, right? There would have to be a much sinister reason behind it. Stuart contacts the FSS, the lab, at the Portuguese police insistence and asks if they take the PJ as idiots, saying that in the UK with less than these results someone would have been already arrested. The FSS still didn't give the results of the analysis on the hair found in the boot, and they won't either. The PJ never found out who the hair belongs to, even though they had the DNA profile of the whole family, including the twins. It seems to me as if the lab didn't want to give too much information about the analysis, like they knew if they do, someone would be incriminated. Did you know that the British lab FSS was actually a government-owned agency and is not excluded that they got their fingers here as well, the government, to further eliminate Kate and Jerry McCann as suspects? Eventually, the FSS was closed down. All the samples stored will be reanalyzed and retested. I really do hope there will be some kind of closure this time. Not the same fiasco he has been since 2007. Officially, the reason for the closure was financial, but allegedly they provided wrong conclusions scientifically in hundreds of important cases. And thank you to Teresa, you know who you are, for this very useful information. There is also something else quite interesting that I would like to share. Amaral mentions that after the preliminary results from the lab, at some point, there's some information they receive. The McCanns are setting up an international alert system for missing children campaign. Obviously, this is a diversionary tactic. And I have to tell you my view on this. The McCanns are still being investigated, right? At this point, there are tons of people out there who believe that they had something to do with Maddie's disappearance, because obviously they've been in the press as being suspects, so people do change their opinions. So, what better time to choose for that campaign, for the international alert system? The whole world is watching as the events unfold, so I'm guessing this move of theirs had something to do with their press manager, Clarence Mitchell. This really smells like him. He probably went to them and said, "Oh, you know what? You have to do this. You look so good in people's eyes, like the most caring parents in the world. So much so that you're even setting up a system for missing kids. And oh my God, this system is international. Do you know how much positive reaction you will get from this? People will forget all about you being made suspects and being investigated." And oh my God, you will not believe what else Amaral receives. Beirut, capital of Lebanon. Check this out. An Arab sheikh has a video of an orgy by other sheikhs on which it seems that Madeleine McCann can be recognized. He would be very much prepared to hand the video over to the British police in exchange for money. Does this sound familiar? The ransom email? It's not funny, but I'm laughing because yes, because it's just unbelievable the lengths some people can go to. I imagine someone just randomly coming across something like this while scrolling online God knows where, and then they come up with a brilliant idea and say, "Oh, you know what? We can use this to further derail the investigation. Doesn't matter, related or not, people will just buy it." Oh, the arrogance makes my blood boil, seriously. Interrogations. And you know what? I'm gonna say again about this Clarence Mitchell. He really has his stamp, in my opinion, because he was a politician's PR or whatever he was in politics with Gordon Brown and whatever. It doesn't matter. But it seems like, just as a general member of public, I'm not interested in politics whatsoever. I never watch politics on TV. I never read about politics, whatever with politics. But it seems to me like like a tactical political move. Why am I saying this? Because, look, for example, let's take Epstein, yeah, for 1 second here. And Ghislaine or Ghislaine, whatever she wants to be called, Maxwell. Okay, they discovered his island, they discovered his little black book, blah blah blah, he died, he killed himself or whatever he did. Now she is arrested, now it's everywhere in the news around the world that there will be the documents released to the public, high profile individuals, politicians and whatnot are in those documents. And then all of a sudden the news stop about Ghislaine Maxwell and about the high profile people and politicians and whatever. And then we get again to the coronavirus news, yeah, spreading again. This, I think, it's a derailing tactic, like with the McCanns. That's why I'm saying that it smells like Clarence Mitchell got his hands in there and came up with all these brilliant ideas. Because maybe you don't know, but behind closed doors, whilst the media is publishing only about the coronavirus, so many high profile people have been arrested and trialed for child abuse or whatever was happening on that island. And they have been trialed and they have been arrested, and there were tons of people. But did you hear about those in the news? No, you didn't. Because they again fooled us. Yeah, my opinion. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Let's get back to the day of the interrogations. So interrogations at this point are over, and Amaral is asking one of his British colleagues if anything came out of the Sheik's story. And guess what? As it turns out, this video was sent to this British colleague in February or March 2007. Oh my god. Way before Maddie's disappearance. So, tell me, who goes to such lengths to make people believe Madeleine is still alive? So, if I get this right, the police received this video in February or March, and then all of a sudden this video resurfaces somehow out of nowhere just when the McCanns are investigated. Oh. So then, in my opinion, someone from the police had access to the video and sent it to the PJ to show that Madeleine is alive, which would mean the McCanns won't need to be investigated anymore, which would mean Maddie was abducted. Fits perfectly, just as it should. The only thing they haven't thought about though was the date of the video was sent in the first place, or perhaps whoever sent it to the PJ didn't think that British colleague would speak about it, right? Or that Amaral will take any notice of it. All these people, they think we are kids. They feed us fantasies and stories and fairy tales, and we should believe these are all real. These people are insane, vile people. They really are, in my opinion. Okay. Blood is boiling. Blood pressure down. The last thing I want to touch today is the monitoring system that the McCanns had. I don't know if you guys knew this, but as it turns out, the Tapas 7 and the McCanns had two lists which described hour by hour how the evening of 3rd of May went. The two lists are in fact written down on the cover of a kid's sticker album which possibly belonged to Madeleine. O'Brien is the one handing over the lists to the first police on the scene. So, let me get this straight. They used the missing child's book to write on and then tear apart? Seriously? Is this how much they cherish the memory of Madeleine? There was no paper, no tissue, or whatever else existed there, only a child book to write on? Oh, come on, this is really disgusting. So here is the first list. 8:45 p.m. all assembled at poolside for food. 9 p.m. met all field listens at all 3 windows. 5 ABD all shutters down. 9:15 p.m. Jerry McCann looks at room A and a question mark. Door open to bedroom. 9:20 p.m. Jane Tanner checks 5D. Sees stranger walking carrying a child. 9:30 p.m. O'Brien in 5D, poorly daughter. 9:55 p.m. 10 p.m. alarm raised after Kate. And at the bottom of this list is the name Gerald in block capital letters. You know, I have to give obviously my opinion again on this. To me, this looks just like a shopping list which you write in a hurry so you don't forget what you need to buy. In this case, what you need to say, obviously. You know, like when you scribble something quickly, oh, let me just, you know, write this down before I forget it, because then when I'm gonna get to the shop I won't remember anymore. So yeah, pretty much something like this. And the fact that Jerry's name is written on the list can mean that this list was meant for Jerry to read, memorize, do what? This annoys me so bad. But then also I'm thinking that this might have been for Jerry, so he would be the one to explain everything, because in my view he's the strongest one of the whole group. He's the most recollected and the most cold and the most cynical person in my view. Yes. And this really does annoy me really bad. And then we also have the second list, right? 8:45 pool. Matt returns 9:05. Listened all 3, all shutters down. Jerry 9:10, 9:15 into room, all well. Did he check? Question mark, question mark. 9:20, 9:25. Jane checked 5D. Sees stranger, I child. 9:30 Russ plus the word is score through. Matt check all 3. 9:35 Matt checks door, sees twins. 9:50 Russ returns. 9:55 Kate, Madeline. 10 p.m. alarm raised. You can clearly tell the writing is irregular. A lot of mistakes there, question marks, as if whoever wrote this was confused and or wrote it down in a hurry. But why in the first list 5A is left 45 minutes without being checked? I think that the existence of these two lists prove that they were in disagreement with what to say, so it makes sense, so it fits in their story. And then yeah, the 45 minutes gap, of course, when they said it's like everybody checked every 30 minutes. If it would be the 45 minutes gap, then it would be too long, isn't it? And then the apartment wouldn't be checked for 45 minutes. So yeah, or it can also be that they might not have had enough time to make sure that the timeline or the list or whatever makes sense. In both lists, however, it's clear that Jane had to have seen a man carrying a child, which is essential and the only statement which can hold this story of abduction together. And we are at the end of our video. That's all for me for today, guys. In my next video I will go into more detail on Jane Tanner's never-ending version of events and ever-changing statements. So if you want to watch my next video, if you are not subscribed, please make sure you subscribe by hitting the red button below. Also make sure you hit the notification bell and you will know when my next video is uploaded. Many thanks for watching, everyone. Take care, stay safe. Bye bye.